What's the scariest thing that's ever woken you up during the middle of the night? My sister had an all-white clown doll that hung from the ceiling on a little swing. In the summertime, we slept with our doors and windows open to get the cool air in. When I woke up one night hearing some tapping against her window down the hall, if I sat up in bed and looked down the hall, and I could see into the front of her bedroom. So I did, and I see this flipping clown swinging back and forth against her window, backlit by the street lamp, but clearly staring directly into my soul, like it was all it desired in this world. I didn't sleep well that summer. I woke up and heard someone walking outside my bedroom window. The window was open and there were leaves on the ground. I got up and put my back against the wall next to the window. I heard a very distinct human walking sound getting closer and closer. I was pooping my pants at this point. They were now very close, and I could see out the window, but I could not see them. I was pressed against the wall as the footsteps got closer and closer. Then the footsteps got quieter as the being got farther away. It took every nerve in my being to look out that window and nothing. I went outside and looked back there, baseball bat in hand, and saw a very large possum. No scary criminal. When I was a kid, we went camping in the woods. I heard what I thought was a bear outside our pop-up camper, and it woke me up. Me and my two brothers were sleeping on one side, with me in the middle, and our parents were sleeping on the other side. It was completely dark, so I couldn't see a thing. But I could hear what I thought was a bear snorting around outside. I was scared to death. I couldn't figure out a way to climb over my brothers and cross to the other side to wake up my father without making noise and alerting the bear to the tasty meal waiting inside. So I just lied there perfectly still for the whole night, waiting for giant claws to rip their way through the canvas. As the sun came up and I started to see, I noticed that the lump that was my father in a sleeping bag was rising and falling with the bear's snorting. Turns out my dad's snoring had kept me up all night in absolute fear. A poster falling down from the wall. I'm pretty sure my neighbors heard my scream. My cat howling at another cat through a screen in the door. Sounded like a demon. The extremely realistic feeling of a bare hand grabbing my foot which made me wake up instantly, only to realize it was somehow a dream. I was drifting off and was already dreaming, but it seemed I was still awake because I was dreaming of myself in bed in my room, but in my dream I was awake. I dreamt some people or person swung through the bedroom door and ran towards me and in an instant and hit me with all their might with some heavy object. I shook awake. It was a similar feeling when you may startle yourself awake because it seems like you're falling. It took a moment for my brain to tell me I was alone and it was just a dream. It was so strange, exhilarating, scary. Never had a dream like it since. I had an industrial size rat dying from rat poison come through a panel in my closet and up into bed with me at 2 AM. It turned out to be funny. Someone was trying loudly to break into a car just outside my ground floor bedroom window that faced a large parking lot in an apartment complex. He was trying to smash the windows and wasn't strong enough and was yelling a lot. I called the police. I heard every word they said when they showed up. It turned out that he was trying to break into his own car because he was too drunk to find his own keys in his own pocket. My dog barking because cops were banging on the doors and windows of our ebb, flashing their lights into each and every room. Called 911 and she told us to not answer the door because she doesn't see cops in our area. Yup. The shadow of a person next to the bed. My first and last night terror. The sound of my front door handle jiggling and the door being opened. My dog launched off the bed and slammed into the door while snarling. He's never acted like that. I called him back to me because I knew it was my roommate coming home. Roommate came out of his room and asked what was going on. Apparently he'd forgotten to lock the front door. Edit. For the people asking, it was a random trying doors to see if they could get in a house. It was around 3 AM. At the time I lived close to a clinic that was a known pill mill. My dog most likely knew by hearing them approaching the house before I woke up. At the least he saved us from being robbed that night, but who knows what could have happened. On a camping trip with friends in a state park. In the middle of the night our tent is woken up by the sound of gunshots. It is illegal to go hunting in state parks, so we weren't sure if the shooter was hunting animals or just shooting a gun randomly into the woods. Gunshots grew louder over the next hour, so it seemed like the shooter was getting closer to our campsite. A state trooper helicopter started flying overhead with a spotlight trying to find the shooter. We eventually heard a bunch of cop cars up the hill from our campsite and heard the state troopers get out and order the shooters to drop their weapons, and they brought the shooters into custody. The next morning we asked the people who ran our campsite what happened. The people who lived in the house up the hill had apparently done a lot of meth, then decided to use cars driving down the main road as target practice. There were RVs and trees in our campsite that had bullet holes in them. Luckily none of the bullets hit any campers or caused any of the cars to go off the road, which would have sent them hurtling down a mountainside. Once I woke up because I heard music playing from the kitchen and I thought maybe mum forgot to turn the radio off. I went through the dark hallway to the kitchen to turn the radio off, but when I was standing in the dark kitchen there was no music playing. Everything was as quiet as always at 3 AM. I heard someone quietly trying my front door knob late at night. I wasn't quite asleep yet. I checked with my roommate later, and it wasn't them. It happened once or twice more, but I never got to the door quickly enough to see who it was through the peephole. Nothing ever came of it, and I live somewhere else now. The worst was when the neighbor boy, 9Y/O, came banging on our door and ringing the doorbell at 1 AM. His mom and stepdad were fighting. Stepdad hit mom and had her on the ground with his hands around her neck trying to choke her. We've never had to call 911 before that night. This poor little boy had his 2Y/O sister in his arms with a completely dazed look on his face. While my mom was on the phone with 911, I sat the boy down and made sure to tell him that he was incredibly brave, and no matter what anyone tells him, he did the right thing by coming here. Even sadder as they had just moved here from across the country. That weekend he knew no one. Edit. Wow, this is the first time one of my posts ever got so much attention. I also see a lot of questions I'll try to answer. They actually moved because her family lived not too far from our area. They used to live in Vegas where they had a lot of domestic related fines against them. The mom is okay, but she is not a good person, as we later learned as she lived right next door. The stepdad would be kicked out for a short amount of time, and then she'd take him back. They'd drink, get into a fight, he'd get kicked out again. The cycle would continue like that. As for the mom, she rarely ever acknowledged the son. There were 2 daughters and she always only referred to herself as a girl mom. She was obsessed with her appearance, quit her job, and tried to become an Instagram model, where she'd wear super skimpy clothes. We had a feeling the son had to take the pictures for her. Also, the girls were always dressed so nice, always had the newest and nicest clothes, but the boy had clothes too small for him, and poor kid needed braces so bad. Yes, my mom did report to CPS, along with many other neighbors. This kid was so brave. I cried later just thinking of when I sat down with him and told him how brave he was and did nothing wrong. His eyes were so glazed over as he was just staring because of the shock and said, "I'm brave." I made him a cup of hot chocolate to try and calm him, and he refused it. When my mom asked why I made hot chocolate in the middle of the night, he jumped up right away and said I said I was okay. She made it anyway. So sad. When I was 18 I'd broken my leg and it was non-weight bearing, so I was sleeping on the sofa downstairs. Woke up to a guy climbing in the window directly over my head. I'd obviously left the window open a crack and he'd seen an opportunity. To be honest, as scared as I was, I'm fairly sure I scared the crap out of him too as he screamed and ran away after I hit him with my crutch. My parents visited my wife and I, and since we didn't have 2 bedrooms, We let them stay in our bedroom, but we have 2 cats and they can open the bedroom door if it isn't locked by key. We told them to remember to close it. Sometime at night I hear a scream followed by cat. Come to find out that my mom went to use the bathroom but forgot to lock the bedroom door afterwards, and my dad was greeted by my cat's face staring at his. Honestly was probably scarier for my cat, who was expecting to see me instead. I had a large camel spider run over my face at about 3 AM. That was not a pleasant sensation. The night I watched the movie The Conjuring, I woke up to my bed shaking and all the clothes hanging in my closet rattling like crazy. Took me quite some time to realize it was an earthquake and not the devil come visiting. When I was in my final year at high school, I had trouble sleeping at night with my final exams approaching. I think I dozed off for a bit and suddenly woke up to see a person's face staring in through my window grill. I was in such a panic I literally couldn't move or scream. Luckily he saw me wake up and escaped. My dog decided to hop onto our piano and started walking along the keys in the middle of the night. I don't know if it counts, but we were in the field in Camp Pendleton, California and sleeping in just our mummy bags under the stars, and I woke up in the night for whatever reason and my eyes focused on the next guy over in our circle, who had one of the largest spiders I've ever seen in the world sitting on his forehead, maybe getting warm or something. Freaked me the flip out. I flicked it off of him and zipped my bag all the way up so there was just the breathing hole and used my boonie cover to plug that and just breathed through the little vents. Sleeping over at a friend's house when I was about 9 years old on the top bunk and was woke up when pieces of the ceiling landed on me and warm furry things also landed all over me and were scurrying across my face, chest and limbs. I jerked up and saw mice skittering all over the place and pieces of the ceiling missing which were on the bunk where I had been sleeping. I got up and the noise woke up my friend's mom who came in, saw the mice running around the bed where I had been and screamed blue murder. Mice were continuing to periodically poke their heads out of the hole in the ceiling. The people who lived in the apartment above my friend had a mouse problem and the mice had an extensive nest in between the 2 apartments in the floor space after the landlord looked at the problem. My friend slept over at my house from then on. When I went cycling and camping alone in Saguaro National Park, Tucson, which maybe wasn't the smartest thing to do by yourself. I was in my mid-20s and went specifically to look for and photograph animals, namely snakes, so I had no fear of creatures. I set up camp one night in a gravelly area and was woken up in the middle of the night by footsteps approaching my tent in the gravel. What scared the living crap out of me and kinda, sorry if this makes me sound like a pussycat, put me off camping alone forever, is that it really sounded like something very heavy and bipedal, like a crazy person coming to murder me, or Sasquatch. It approached my tent with slow, heavy footsteps crunching in the gravel. I didn't hear any other sound, no breathing or rustling of clothing, just crunching gravel. There were just 2 footsteps, not 4. It came right up to the tent, then walked away, slowly. I have no idea what it was, and it may have been a mountain lion. They can walk pretty stealthily. But the thought of a human being walking around in the desert at night and slowly approaching me while I slept is what scared me the most, not the thought of an animal or monster. I wanted to call out hello, but was literally paralyzed with fear. I didn't sleep again that night, but came out at sunrise to find 0 evidence, and just carried on with my trip without incident, but have not been camping alone since. I woke up with chunks of teeth in my mouth and severe abdominal pain, probably swallowed some tooth. Then, I looked across the room and there was a pool of blood on the opposite side of the room. After quickly spitting out the rest of the teeth bits, I went to the bathroom and was shocked to see my entire face was bleeding, but from a deep cut in my chin, and not from my missing tooth. I realized that I had sleepwalked, then decided to fall asleep while standing on the other side of the room, and did a belly flop straight on the floor, and then somehow after all of that, got up again, and walked back into bed, and fell asleep for a few more hours. I had to get a new tooth from a student doctor that I've never gotten fixed. I also ended super gluing my busted chin together because I couldn't afford stitches. Like and subscribe for more videos.